Hey, what's up? This is Sifu Kuttel, and in this video, we're going to be working with the Ming Long Dao. Now, this is a Chinese sword. This one in particular comes from LK Chen. It is the crossbowman's Dao, and it is based as a high-fidelity recreation of a Ming dynasty sword that was made by the Chinese. Now, you may look at this and think it's a katana. Well, it is made similar to a katana. Basically, to make a long story short, when Japanese pirates were invading in China, they noticed that these swords were actually pretty effective, so the Chinese designed some of their own. So you get the really long Chang Dao, and you get a crossbowman's sword, so something like this that is similar, but has some very distinct differences in the construction and forging. Now, with that said, the techniques that we're going to look at today are all one-handed techniques, and I picked these ones because they're quite interesting. They either end with one hand or begin with one hand. And one in particular actually begins and ends with one hand. Now, this by no means means that they're more effective. If you have a two-handed sword like this, you're going to have more leverage, more maneuverability with two hands on the sword, but sometimes the context is going to dictate that you have one hand on the sword. Now, the last thing I do want to mention is these techniques were designed to go up against somebody with a spear. So all of the techniques are going to be basically fighting against straightforward poking and thrusts. So keep that in mind as we're doing this. If we're going to be blocking or in some cases grabbing the spear, it's something where they're moving in and it's a straight line thrust. All right, so grab your sword and let's get to work. In this technique, we're going to begin with two hands on the sword, and we're going to start with more or less a neutral position. So we're going to have forward posture. We're going to have the sword more or less starting from low, pointing up, and ending about at eye level. Now, again, we want to think of a spear attacking, so it's going to be thrusting over the top of my blade. So the first thing I'm going to do is upward press and out to the side. Okay, so from here, I press it up. Notice I step a little bit more lateral as I do this to get my body behind it and force the spear out of the way and back, okay? It's not a cut, so we're not gonna do a big swing. Just rotate and press to the upper corner, okay? I bring my hands a little bit more outside. I don't need to point. Now from here, you wanna think of either if we've kind of pushed the spear out of the way and it's recorrected, or after their first thrust, they try to pull back and go in for another one. We want to hit the spear down and hopefully knock it out of their hands. So again, press out to the side. I'm going to step back and then just hammer down, okay, as I do this. So again, press, hammer. Just a quick tap. Think of pressing forward with the sword. You want that push-pull mechanic, pushing with the front hand, pulling with the back hand. You're going to have that leverage help you out on this one, and then using your stance to drop down on it, okay? So again, side step, press out to the side, step back, really get some angle here. So from my initial side step, I come back more, pop downward here, and then this is where we're going to use the one-handed thrust. This is going to give us just a little more ability to reach, okay? Now, you can try two different thrusts if you want here. The manual has it just says to thrust forward with the sword, but the drawing has it as a flat blade. You can also turn the blade so it's sideways. So we can try to get underneath to go underneath the throat or to pierce between ribs as we do this. Okay, so it's up to you at this point how much you want to turn your hand. Okay, so again, from our neutral position, press, chop, and then of course you want to try to advance in as you thrust forward. Okay, again, putting it together, it's just 3 steps. 1, 2, 3, and we end with that one hand. This technique is going to test our courage. Basically, a spear is being thrust at us. Our blade is not in sight. We have one hand on the blade. We're going to catch and control the spear. Now, it's easy to do a hand motion like this and think of grabbing as if we're grabbing somebody's arm, just like in martial arts training. But in more cases, you're just gonna find that you're gonna get the grab after you wrap the arm up and over. So don't worry, it's good to have the hand grab here, but most likely it'll happen once you're able to wrap the elbow over the top and grab onto the spear itself. Controlling under the elbow is going to be a lot stronger. And then if you add that grip, you have a very, very strong grip. But you have to catch a forward thrusting spear. So good luck. For this one, we'll keep it simple. We'll start with our blade back. And then we're going to twist, grab, wrap over, go over the top from inside to out, and then bring the blade in, and then step through and thrust. Again, we're going to keep this thrust with the blade edge down because the mechanics here make it a little bit easier for this type of thrust. And then we can just extend after we get this power generated. Okay? So again, with the blade back, really breaking it down. Grab, bring it here, pull, step, thrust. Okay? If I'm facing this way, grab, pull, get it underneath, step, thrust. Okay? Again, 1, 2. Okay? Now, this twisting step allows us to get around to the outside a little bit so we can move off that straight line of attack. So we try to step away and then we come back through with the stab. But if you're moving fast, it's going to be a little bit more narrow. Okay? So again, we have 1, 2 here. And think of that as like just quick steps. 1, 2, and stab, almost going to be at the same time. So again, with my blade back, grab 1, 2 here. If I'm facing towards you, my blade is back. 1, 2, and stab. In this technique, again, we're pushing bravery and courage to grab an oncoming spear. Now, the big difference here is maybe they try to pull back the spear, they try to move it out of our grip, we just end up losing the grip. There's no need to try to just use a one-handed technique at the end. We're gonna switch to a regular double grab and cut down with force, okay? As we do the cut, remember, push-pull mechanic. Pushing forward, pulling, and then the arms are going to be coming down at the same time so we get some good forward cutting motion, not just trying to cut straight down. Okay? So again, we'll just start with the blade back. Similar to our last technique, we're going to grab. Now, again, think of it as a failed grab, so we're going to return that hand, grabbing the sword over the head, step, push, pull, and then cut. Okay? In the manual, it says cut with force. This one is going in for the kill. So you want to have good energy on that cut. Again, we'll just start with the sword back. Grab, grab, cut. Okay. Now remember, we do have a bit of an off-angle step. It's not just straight linear. We want to grab and get a little bit to the outside here. Grab, and then cut down. A good way to practice this is just to have something in the distance that you cannot reach as a target. And then this way you know where you should be cutting in that same direction. Okay? Just because my feet are stepping this way doesn't mean I'm going to cut this way. My target should still be over here. Okay? So again, this will go a little bit faster this time. Grab, grab, and cut. It's not going to be as quick as that forward stab. That's almost the exact same time as our foot steps, but we still get everything moving forward and into the final cut. The final technique is going to have us in a very unusual starting position. We're actually going to start with the sword over our shoulders, pointing towards our attacker, and then our hand is going to be kind of out. Now, in the old manual, it said that there was actually high praise for the Japanese pirates that were using a technique kind of unorthodox, starting with the hands out and the sword out. And they actually had a saying that, you know, you can't overestimate your opponent or you'll end up getting killed, because a lot of times when the Chinese saw the Japanese out with their sword back or over the shoulder and they have their hand out like this, it shows vulnerability. And then when they would move in to attack, the Japanese would find that timing and they would know how to move in and beat them to the punch and basically take advantage of the underestimation. Okay, so in a sense, we're kind of setting that same thing up by starting with the sword over the shoulder. Now, you can do this any way you want. There's really no particular way to do it. You can have the Bruce Lee hand out if you want. I am, by nature, I always have my hand like the sword hand position. So you're gonna see this no matter what. Anytime we're doing any techniques with the Dao, I'm gonna be using the sword hand open palm like this. You can even just have your hand in a fist. But basically we wanna show vulnerability. And notice it's gonna be a little bit wide here. I wanna invite the spear thrust to come in this way. Now, ideally, they were saying in the manual to invite it into the armpit here. So this could be because of the armor, or it could just be the position of the hand. If my elbow is a little bit higher, now it appears that I'm more open underneath. I'm probably gonna protect my head. So you have this kind of not ready position, but you're ready, okay? Like the art of war, right? Appearing weak when you're strong. So, sword over the shoulder, tip pointing forward, hand out. We're inviting an attack to come in towards the inside. So we're gonna use an inward block as this comes in. So right here, block across. Just like in Kung Fu or any kind of martial arts training, don't overdo it. You're just gonna go shoulder to shoulder. Close the door here, okay? So as that spear tip comes in, close the door, and then it says leap forward and cut them down, okay? So from here, we're gonna use almost the same footwork. Hop, 1, 2, and then cut for number 3, okay? So if I go back to this position, over the head, right here, block, leap, 1, 2, 3, okay? Again, coming up and over, block, 1, 2, 3. Now, from this position, it might be a little bit easier to come down a little more diagonal. That's totally fine. We still have the same push-pull mechanics, pushing with the front hand, pulling with the back hand, and then using the body momentum moving forward to cut right into our opponent. Now, it wouldn't be Kung Fu if we didn't string things together like a form. So let's put these together. You can actually do these back to back simply by just turning around. Okay, so let's start with our first technique. We have both hands on the sword. Remember, we have a good sword position, tip up, but the spear thrust, we can invite it over the top by dropping the tip of the sword here. We come up to block, tap it down, and then thrust. Okay? Now, this is pretty much the same position that we'll start in with our other techniques if we just turn around, okay? So again, we have 1, 2, 3. Turn around. We're gonna use our first grab, wrap, set the blade, and thrust, okay? Again, up, down, single hand thrust. Turn around, grab, wrap, single hand thrust. Turn around, same thing here. Grab, cut down. Now here's the only time that it's gonna be a little bit different. We have to get the sword over our shoulder. So we're gonna dip down like a flower, rest on the arm, up over the head, and then from here, block, jump in and cut, okay? So again, if we're starting from that last cut right here, down, flip, up, over the shoulder, okay? So kind of like a flower. And then when it comes up and over, we can just rest it here or touch the arm and bring it up and over like our basic Dan Dao technique. Okay, so let's start it again. We have block up and out, tap, single hand thrust, turn around, grab, wrap, single hand thrust, turn around, block or grab, chop down, drop, back, hand comes over the shoulder, block, 1, 2, cut. Now, if I'm facing the other way, again, same sword starting position here. I come up, down, thrust, turn around, grab, wrap, thrust, turn around, grab, cut down, drop, bring it over the head, block, jump, cut. Okay, so there you have it. Now that you've seen these techniques, you have kind of a better idea of the courage and bravery needed to be able to accomplish these one-handed techniques. Even back in the Ming Dynasty manual, it is said you need to be brave when you do this technique, because if you're taking on a spear and trying to grab it, there's a lot of repercussions if you do not make your mark and actually catch it. Okay, now the one last thing I do want to mention is if you don't have this sword from LK Chen, the Crossbowman's Dao, if you have maybe a Dan Dao that's long, or a Chang Dao, or even a Katana or a Miao Dao, you can work with this technique. The swords are always going to be a little bit different, but they're close enough in construction that you can work with this and figure it out for yourself. I hope you guys found these techniques just as interesting as I do, and let me know what you think about them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.